Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we will start off with our major top stories and reports. 13 Israelis and 4 Thai nationals arrived in Israel on Sunday after a second release of hostages held by Hamas in an exchange of a deal of Palestinian prisoners, despite a dispute about aid delivery into Gaza. Although the issue was resolved through mediation by Egypt and Qatar, it delayed the release of captives and underscored the fragility of the 4-day truce to swap 50 hostages held by the Palestinian resistance group for 150 prisoners in Israeli jails. More in this report.
Palestinian official familiar with the truce efforts between Hamas and the Israelis played down the threat it could collapse. He said there is no major threat to the agreement. Mediators are dealing with things on a daily basis, and hopefully the deal will be completed. The truce is the first halt in fighting since Hamas resistance fighters rampaged through southern occupation enclaves on October 7, killing 1,200 people and taking about 240 hostages. The Israeli occupation has since then rained bombs and shells on the enclave and mounted a ground offensive in the north, killing thousands of civilians. Some 14,800 people, roughly 40% of them children, have been killed. Television images showed freed hostages on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing after leaving Gaza as Hamas handed the captives to the International Committee of the Red Cross late on Saturday. 6 of the 13 Israelis released were women and 7 were teenagers or children.
Welcome back, and we're delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former assistant to the foreign minister. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Sir, how do you see the success of the truce?
I think, we should not make of the truce more than it deserves. The truce is a breathing space for the people of Gaza who have been suffering slaughter and lack of supplies. It's a breathing space, but it is not a solution to the massacres that have happened. The massacres that have happened are war crimes that necessitate the apprehension of those responsible for those crimes and putting them in front of an international tribunal to pass sentence on them.
Right. Sir, some say the truce is in a threat to collapse. What are your expectations for this?
News have been coming that since the first hour of the implementation of the truce, there has been breaking of the truce by the Israelis, and they have been shooting at civilians. I personally have no trust in a system of occupation that commits atrocities as those that have been committed. These atrocities are no less or even more than atrocities that have been committed by the Nazis and by Adolf Hitler. And the difference between this and what the Israelis are doing, that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis have been castigated and have been punished and have been tried, and justice has been done. Until justice is done in the case of Gaza, and indeed in the case of the whole occupation of Israel in Palestine, I think that no peace or justice-loving person will see in peace.
Sir, how do you see further political steps between Hamas and the Israeli occupation after the truce?
I don't think there is a place for any political steps. The Israelis have declared by politicians and army personnel that their aim is to eradicate Hamas. When you start by saying that, there is no place left for political understanding.
Yes. Sir, how do you see the Israelis that they don't find any shame in targeting of women and children? What does this tell about their moral basis which the Israelis are dealing with?
The Israelis, I think, throughout their history, since the creation of Israel, had no shame. They had no shame over Lift and Ramla. They had no shame on Deir Yassin. They had no shame in bombing the Bahr al-Bahr school in Egypt. They had no shame in bombing the Abu Za'bal factory. And having no shame is nothing new to the Israelis. This is a criminal state. This is an aberration of international relations. And until they are castigated and punished for what they have done, they are going to continue what they are doing.
Right. Ambassador Shazly, how do you see the global public opinion and images conveyed by and delivered by Western media over events in Gaza?
I think we should here make a difference between the popular actions and the governmental actions. Unfortunately, the governmental actions of the Israel and its allies, namely the NATO alliance, are shameful. They are watching by as civilians and children are being slaughtered and massacred. They are standing passively while a whole denomination is being destroyed. This is, I think, shameful. And but I think there is a popular recognition of the shamefulness of the government, and we have seen riots in the United States, we have seen riots in Germany, we have seen riots in France and in Britain, and this, I think, shows that there is a big split between the governmental and the popular attitude towards what is happening.
Right. Sir, a clear division is witnessed in the West between the public opinion and state stances. How do you expect this to develop?
Can you repeat? I didn't hear you correctly.
A clear division is witnessed in the West between the public opinion and state stances. How do you expect this to develop?
Well, if the West claims that there is a democracy and that they are democratic countries, they should acquiesce the governments to the public opinion and to the popular sentiments of their people.
Yes. With Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen getting into the line of conflict, what are your expectations for a spillover of events? These
countries are not getting into this. They are drawn into the conflict because they are threatened. The Israelis have threatened everybody. They have threatened to turn Lebanon back into the Stone Age. A military person in a military Air Force field said that we have the capability of reaching any country in the Middle East. The Israelis are threatening everybody, and I think that countries are starting in the Arab world are starting to realize the threat that Israel is posing upon them.
Sir, how do you see the Israelis' ability to deal with several fronts of conflict being opened right now?
I think, the Israelis should reconsider themselves And they have to realize that threatening the whole Arab world is a miscalculated folly. The Arab world is still has tremendous power, military power, that if this power is mobilized in the Arab world, it will be disastrous for Israel. And I think to neglect this fact and to act with the Arab world as a dormant body, because this dormant body will wake up, and this dormant body has tremendous military power that can hurt Israel to the extent.
Well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Many thanks for your insights, sir. And dear viewers, now we move on to our next report. The commander of Hamas Northern Brigade and 3 other senior leaders had been killed during the Israeli occupation's aggression in Gaza. Hamas reported the casualties Sunday as the truce between Hamas and the Israeli occupation authorities entered its second day.
Sunday that the commander of its northern brigade, Ahmad al-Ghandour, and 3 other senior leaders had been killed during the Israeli occupation offensive against Gaza. In a statement, the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigade said Ghandour was a member of its military council and named 3 other leaders who had died, including Ayman Siyam, who Israeli occupation media reports said was head of the brigade's rocket-firing units. Ghandour, whose nom de guerre was Abu Anas, was listed by the U.S. in 2017 as a specially designated global terrorist, putting him on an economic sanctions blacklist. The State Department described him as a former member of Hamas's Shura Council and member of its political bureau. The announcement came on the 3rd day of a 4-day pause in fighting in Gaza, which began on October 7 when Hamas resistance fighters stormed into southern Israeli occupation enclaves, killing 1,200 and snatching around 240 others.
Welcome back, and still with our special report. 7 Palestinians were killed in the occupied West Bank, 2 of them children, overnight and early Sunday. 5 of the overnight killings by the Israeli occupation occurred in the city of Jenin.
Miners in the occupied West Bank late on Saturday and early Sunday. The West Bank, among territories where Palestinians seek the redeclaration of their statehood, has experienced a surge in violence parallel to the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip, now in its 8th week. 5 of the overnight killings by Israelis occurred in the city of Jenin, which the Israeli occupation military said it raided to detain 21 Palestinians. The Jenin Brigades, a local resistance group, said its fighters battled the Israeli occupation troops. It did not immediately provide details on any casualties. The Wafa, official Palestinian news agency, said that Israeli occupation forces stormed Jenin from several directions, firing bullets and surrounding government hospitals and the headquarters of the Red Crescent Society. A 6th Palestinian fatality was in Yatma, a village near Nablus city, and another was near a Jewish occupation enclave outside the West Bank town of El Bire. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli occupation on these killings. 6 other Palestinians were injured during the shooting in Jenin. Wafa said a number of Palestinian factions called for a strike in Jenin on Sunday to mourn the souls of the martyrs. About 200 West Bank Palestinians have been killed by Israeli occupation troops or settlers since October 7.
And that's all for this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.